Hello and welcome to Independent.ie's look ahead to tonight's Republic of Ireland International against Latvia. I'm Aidan O'Hara. I'm joined by soccer writer Aidan Fitzmaurice. And Aidan, there's only one place to start really, and that's Evan Ferguson, the new great hope of Irish football.
Yeah, I think it's changed everything about the night. The fact that Stephen Kenny said he's going to start, I think we kind of knew he would play a part, but the fact that he's starting, I think it'll make a difference to the attendance, not in terms of ticket sales. Match was already more or less sold out. I think there's 48,000 gone, but a lot of people bought them as a package for France, and they might have been wavering to go. It's a school night. It's people are waiting to get paid. It's a busy week. People mightn't have gone, but I think people want to be there for themselves and their kids to say they were there the night that Evan Ferguson had his first start in Dublin. He didn't play against Norway in Dublin last year, but to be there, it's one of those nights that hopefully down the road people still talk about. Brady's debut on Dalymount in '74, Robbie's start against Argentina in Dublin in '98. People are hoping that this is a player in generation, Evan Ferguson, and people want to be there. So it's all eyes on one man.
Yeah, no pressure then. Follow on
No,
that. But
no pressure, but that's the thing. But he's dealt with it. I mean, this
he
is
has.
often with Ireland. We're bringing in players who haven't played much. Like Norman Whiteside is an example. Came through with Northern Ireland before he played any real football with Manchester United. Whereas Evan, we've seen him in the FA Cup last week. We've seen him in the Premier League. He's been exposed to it already. He's dealt with the pressure. He's played in the Premier League. He's dealt with everything that comes with it. It's still his first full season, but he already looks like someone who can deal with that pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see him being used? Obviously, tonight's game is going to be very, very different to the France game. Like the presumption would be that he'd start both games. How do you see his role in the team maybe differing from previous centre forwards that Kenny has used?
I think Kenny's gone through a fair few, and he's tend to rely on somebody. And if Callum Robinson is one that Kenny really, really likes, even though his output in terms of Robinson has scored a few, but they tend to be in friendlies. A lot of people still unconvinced about Robinson being able to do it, but I think we'll probably see different formations tonight. You're right; it's going to be a very different game against Latvia compared to France, where we're going to have an awful lot of possession against France. Sorry, against Latvia. And the job would be to break them down, to find a way to break them down, to get the ball through to Evan, or if it is two up top, which it may or may not be, we don't know. But it's going to be a completely different game against France. So I think what Kenny and his staff will look for to see how does Ferguson cope with the players around him, how does he cope with that shape, and I think the shape for France could be dictated by how they do. As I said, it's a completely different game. I think Kenny will be looking back on the game this time last year against Lithuania. uh, I know we can't really, it's unfair to compare Latvia and Lithuania. We don't like people saying we're English because we're not. Latvians are different to Lithuanians, but we're from the same part of the world. They're more or less beside each other in the rankings. They play a quite similar style, even though Latvia are probably a bit more attacking. Lithuania came here last year, parked the bus looking for a draw. They nearly got it twice. Paris scored in injury time to get the goal, which really took a lot of the heat off Kenny. That was the second game of a March double header. So I think Kenny will look back at that and see to open them up, and for Ferguson just to get that goal to take the pressure off. He's had his debut last year. This will be his first start tonight. The next step is to get his goal and to see who's around him. And I think might see Obafemi. I don't know if Obafemi is going to start, but I think how Obafemi links up with Ferguson is going to be one of the takeaways for the night to take into Monday against France.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting the quotes from Kenny saying, opponents are paying us a lot of respect, but you start with a low block. I'm not sure at times whether it's so much respect as how how easy it is, or how easy sometimes Ireland have been to play against with the low block, as they say now, or sitting deep previously. Perhaps having that focal point in Ferguson might mean that they could be a little bit more direct. Rather, is that something that you'd see happen? I know Kenny kind of bristled sometimes when you talk about being direct and versus overpassing, but is the presence of Ferguson giving them something that they haven't had?
I think so. I mean, people talk an awful lot about that, about the slow play against direct, and people, this Kenny, as you right, Kenny does bristle with that because I think it's back to 1990 where the ploy simply is to give it to Packy Bonner, punt it up as far as he can
Mm.
to Niall Quinn or Tony Cascarino or whatever. But it does work sometimes. The goal in the last goal Ireland scored in Malta was a result of that. One of the last big wins in Dublin against Germany under Martin O'Neill was punt up from goal, loose defending, and Shane Long getting the goal. So I think Evan does give you that. What you see with Evan is, one of his goals against Grimsby, his control in the box.
Mm.
And again, you look at the back of the CFA Cup, it's Grimsby, but still, he had to show that control and
Yeah.
that poise in the box. That's what encourages me, that he can play it both ways, that you can go direct. And I wonder in terms of getting the ball into him. I don't think he may start tonight, and he certainly won't start on Monday. But Will Smallbone is a player who I think will be a player for Ireland in the next couple of years. Kenny really has talked him up in the build-up to this game. Not enough for him to start against France. Even Kenny admitted to be a huge leap. But Will Smallbone, I think, could be of the next phase of this Irish team because he's playing in Stoke. He's playing 90 minutes more or less every week. He's topping the charts in terms of everything, in terms of his running, but his passing. Kenny referenced a game he was at with Stoke recently where Smallbone played a ball out to a teammate that nobody else saw the pass. Kenny wasn't expecting it. He turned his eyes the other way. He didn't think Smallbone could pick out the player where he was. So someone like Smallbone, that's kind of what we've been lacking, that craft, that ingenuity in midfield, that West Hewland player to pick a pass, to get it into Evan. And to look at that goal that Evan scored against Grimsby, well, where did it come from? What was it? Was it a long ball? Was it direct, or was it slow, patient, clever, intricate play that cut the ball into him? And then Evan proved with his touch in the box, albeit against Grimsby, but still he put it away. So a mixture of both, going direct, but using that patience in midfield as well.
Yeah, there's a few players there. I mean, you mentioned Smallbone, who's I've seen him a few times in the championship. He's been very good. Some of the, if you like, the bigger name players, if you like, haven't had much game time. The likes of Matt Doherty, even Nathan Collins hasn't been getting in as much as he was when the last international window was there. Do you see them kind of? Obviously, Doherty will start tonight, but they need to get a bit of match sharpness into them tonight. It's not just a kind of stretch the legs type of evening, I wouldn't think.
No, that's what this match is about. It's about, I think Kenny probably does know his team for France. So you look at the ones who haven't played. Matt Doherty has had 10 minutes since he went to Atletico. Omobamidele has had a difficult couple of weeks. He hasn't started the last 6 games for Norwich. The one before that, he came off at half time. He needs games. Nathan Collins, he got a bit of a run off the bench for Wolves last week. Not a great game because they conceded 4. So they're 3 who need games. I'm not sure about the back 4 for Monday. I think you've got 4 players. You've got, in terms of the centre halves, you've got Darragh O'Shea, John Egan, Omobamidele, and Nathan Collins. Be 3 from those 4. I think Omobamidele probably has the nod in terms of pace because so much is focused going to be on France because of the pace, particularly of Mbappe. And I think that's where Omobamidele will come in. So I think Kenny will be looking at tonight to see. O'Shea has played more or less every minute of every game for West Brom. We don't need to see what he does. I think O'Shea might miss out tonight. Not being overlooked, he's just rested. Kenny doesn't need to see, but I think he does need to see Collins. He needs to give Collins a good 90 minutes. He needs to give Omobamidele. He needs Matt Doherty. They need to get runs as well. Jason Malumbi's another one. He's kind of been bitty for West Brom. He's getting minutes here or there. He hasn't really had that run of solid 90 minutes that Darragh O'Shea has had, that Will Smallbone has. Smallbone isn't the frame to start. So Coleman we don't need to see. Darragh O'Shea we don't need to see. But those players we need to see and to give them 90 minutes. And Kenny was talking about the timing of it. He wanted this, that it's more difficult for France. If you look at France's plans, they're playing at home to Holland on Friday. They then have to travel, come to Dublin on Sunday, play Monday. I think this does suit Kenny really in terms of the time. He wanted a Wednesday game to have that game, and then have the recovery. He didn't want a Friday game where Saturday then is about recovery and then maybe having to change things around because of knocks that people have picked up, particularly like Doherty, whose fitness would have to be a concern because he hasn't played. So the timing of it is ideal. So by all means, give Doherty 90 minutes, give Collins, give Omobamidele 90 minutes, another run out for Bazunu. And these options in the back 4, these options up front, what works best up front? Is it Obafemi up front with Ferguson? Is it Ferguson up front on his own and maybe possibly Knight playing off him, Obafemi or Bene playing off him? I think he'll look for those. I think we'll probably see changes at halftime as well in terms of what's working, what's not working. Obafemi is another player who needs minutes as well. He's had a very disinterrupted year since he came on the scene kind of in June with Ireland. He really, with the move and the lack of football and everything else, trying to get into a Burnley team. The last game he came on for a guy who scored a hat-trick, so that's just taken off the guy who's done the business and given Obafemi minutes. Obafemi needs minutes tonight as well, so they're the ones who need minutes. I don't see it as a case of someone like the new players, aside from Ferguson, the likes of Mark Sykes, Will Smallbone, or Mikey Johnston. It's not a case that they can come in tonight, play a stormer and play themselves into the team. That's just too big a leap for Mikey Johnston. He'll get minutes tonight, but Mikey Johnston certainly won't come into the frame to start against France.
And just finally, been around the group for the week. I know it can be hard sometimes judging moods and stuff like that, but is it like this seems to be really an air of positivity, certainly in the general public around the team. Is that the mood around the camp? People seem to be it seems to be quite a free kind of camp in terms of pressure and such like.
Yeah, if you look at France, and maybe Deschamps, this is water off our ducks back to Deschamps. He's won the World Cup as a player, manager, and all the talk about the story early in the week was that, a possible walkout, that Griezmann was so, they need a new captain, Lloris is retired, so it was Griezmann or Mbappe for captain. He's gone for Mbappe, and story in one of the French papers about that Griezmann was not walking out, but he was considering his future. Now Deschamps has since come out to kind of kill that off. And he said, look, I spoke to him. It wasn't a case of one against the other. It was just I felt that Mbappe had more qualities, and Griezmann is vice captain. But France have had a few problems, a lot of retirements, a lot of questions about Deschamps. If they don't do well against Holland, it is a happier camp with Ireland. I think in general there's a good mood at the moment. I mean, this is sold out. 48,000 for Latvia. Very few countries playing friendlies this week will have 48,000 people. Tickets sold. As I said, that may not be
Mm-hmm.
48,000
Yes,
people in
still,
the stadium,
yeah.
but it's still very, very healthy. I think there's a good mood. I think this group have a strong connection with Ireland, with Irish football. Even Matt Doherty said the other day, the first thing he did after being told he was captain was ring his dad. There's a connection with the game here. I think that really has been weaker in previous years, but I think they know that the under 17s have qualified, the under 19s are trying to qualify. They're playing Slovakia today in Wexford. A lot of players will be aware of that the 21s have a game. The League of Ireland is doing well. Evan Ferguson will be aware that Bows are top of the league and are that's not means you're going to win France, but I think just as a general uplift in the game here in general, they'll know that the women's team are going to the World Cup. There's a sponsors gig on tomorrow where it'll be Stephen Kenny, the manager, a member of the Irish team, men's team, but also the women's team. That wouldn't happen 10 years ago. The women's team would have been nowhere near that. So there's just a general lift that it's doing well. I think there was a lot of gloom last year, particularly various stages with the defeats and that Lithuania game, which I think this time last year, I think was huge. If we'd drawn that game, that would have fed into the mood over a couple of months to the next game in June. So they do seem to be happy. A lot of them doing well with their clubs. You know, you got Festi Abasella, in the 21s, he played for Udinese when they beat AC Milan last week, and he can't get in the senior squad. He's in the under 21s. Just a lot of stuff going on at the moment, and I think the players feed off that. But the senior team is the top. That's the top of the tree. They know that's what everything else feeds off. That drives revenue of the association. It drives the attention. That's why they know they do need a good, not just a good performance, but a good result. Carry that into Monday, and who knows? France could be come to Dublin off the back of a horror show against Holland. Might have been booed off. They might have had a bad. Maybe there's more problems in the camp to come out. But I think after all the stuff that Stephen Kenny has taken with the video gate, the bad results, debate over his contract, constant stuff in the FEI, the lack of funding, he will take what's going at the moment, just ride the wave while it's going. And again, look to Evan Ferguson. The dream tonight is a win, a clean sheet, a good game for Bazunu, and a goal for Evan Ferguson.
Sounds like a good night's work. Hopefully it plays out that way. Aidan, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Aidan.